Tonight on KQED Newsroom, despite coronavirus concerns, California lawmakers are back at work in person after 2 months away as the state faces a massive budget deficit. And striking a balance between safety and livelihoods, some retailers are beginning to reopen as California moves to stage 2 of our pandemic recovery. Plus, a long-running Asian American film festival goes entirely virtual for the first time in its history. We'll preview the lineup. Hello and welcome to KQED Newsroom. I'm Priya David Clemens. It's week 8 of sheltering in place in Northern California, and statewide, some restrictions started to lift today. The California State Assembly headed back to Sacramento this week following a 2-month hiatus, which coincided with the coronavirus pandemic. Among the daunting challenges, with stores shuttered and residents staying at home, legislators are dealing with a massive budget deficit from declining tax revenues. And with the pandemic projected to continue through the fall, expanding vote by mail as a safe option for the November election. Lawmakers still have to address long-standing challenges, from boosting affordable housing to fighting climate change. Joining us now from San Francisco is Democratic California State Assemblymember David Chiu, and from Yuba City in Sutter County is Republican Assemblymember James Gallagher. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
So you both returned to work this week. Set the scene for us. What's it like to legislate in the midst of a pandemic with masks and protests? Assemblymember Gallagher, to you first.
Well, I think the biggest difference that you notice is that the Capitol building is not populated. I mean, it's like a ghost town walking the halls. Usually, the public is in the Capitol walking the building, obviously different groups that are wanting to petition their government. You don't see that, right? So we're still being able to conduct our hearings, and we provided public access for all that want to give input over the phone and conference calls, and also a video conferencing center in the Capitol for witnesses to testify.
Assemblymember Gallagher, are masks required? Are you wearing a mask?
No, they are not required. We ask the public to wear masks, but they are not required for members. I'm practicing social distancing. I don't go within 6 feet of other persons. In the committee room, we are separated out, and we also have on microphones, a covering so that and all the surfaces are continually disinfected. So there's a lot of safety protocols that have been put in place.
Assemblymember Chiu, what has it been like to legislate during this pandemic?
Well, after 7 weeks of not being in Sacramento, I'm very glad to be back because we have an awful lot of work to do. It has been a little surreal to be wearing masks everywhere we go. It's not easy to talk through them as we're making our case on different issues. I have to admit, I am a little disappointed that some of our colleagues across the aisle are not wearing masks all the time. And I'm going to bring a San Francisco mask for James Gallagher. As far as the protests, listen, we all understand the intense economic anxiety that people are experiencing. We're seeing it in all our districts. But that being said, unfortunately, too many of these protests are being driven by white supremacists, anti-vaxxers, funded by conservative astroturf groups, and inciting physical confrontation with the police, and frankly, co-opting legitimate suffering that's happening. From my perspective, that's not excusable. It's counterproductive. We can't politicize what's going on right now.
Assemblymember Gallagher, do you have a response to that?
Well, I don't think that's an accurate portrayal of all of the people that are showing up at these protests. I think most people, are people that obviously they want to express their opinion about the stay-at-home orders, as they have a constitutional right to do. It hasn't impacted us at all. We've continued to do our legislative business. Nobody has been disruptive of the legislative process in any way. People have gathered outside. That's, their prerogative to do, their constitutional right. CHP has provided, security at the building. And I think to try and pigeonhole what these people are protesting about or what group they're associated with, it isn't an accurate portrayal.
All right, Assemblymember Gallagher, let's go to your district. Yuba and Sutter counties, which are both in your district, have allowed restaurants, gyms, nail salons, and other retailers to open this week in defiance of the state's stay-at-home orders. What do you say to critics who say that decision is the wrong call and that it's jeopardizing public health?
Well, I'd ask them to actually look into what transpired in Yuba Sutter. What happened was our public health officer, who actually issued a stay-at-home order before the governor, did in Yuba and Sutter counties one day before the governor did, issued a new order that was based on public health guidances, both federal and state public health guidances, and evidence-based, peer-reviewed research guidances that are out there, namely the Johns Hopkins risk matrix guidelines, and allowed for businesses that are under that risk matrix of a low risk of spread, allowed them to open with safety protocols. It was a public health order that helps protect the public from the continued spread of COVID. We've had very low cases. We had 69 total cases in the 6 counties that I represent. 50 of them are fully recovered. There is currently no one of suspected COVID-19 infection in a hospital bed in my 6-county region, including Yuba.
Assemblymember Chiu, many business owners in your district as well, San Francisco and Oakland, are hurting and would like to reopen. What do you say to them?
Listen, no one is excited about the fact that businesses are closed. I used to run a small business, and I'm hearing the pain every single day. We've had so many small businesses that have been decimated. It's estimated a huge number of our restaurants may have to close. We're even seeing significant layoffs in our tech and innovation sectors. That being said, very much appreciate and support Governor Newsom's data-driven approach to phasing in how we reopen. We really need to bring the best public health standards and data as we move forward. He sets standards for what businesses can open up at different times. He's also giving local jurisdiction really the ability to, once they meet those standards, to explain that to state health officials, and the idea that we can support different parts of the state opening up earlier. So it may be the case that in Yuba City, where James represents, things may be different than in dense urban areas like San Francisco. I think that's appropriate.
Let's talk about the budget deficit. $54 billion, a huge budget deficit. Plus, it looks like there's a projected almost 20% unemployment rate coming. You both sit on the Assembly's Budget Committee, and Assemblymember Chiu, you're the chair of the Committee on Housing and Community Development. How will this deficit impact the affordable housing goals you've championed?
This is going to be very, very challenging. Listen, the housing and homelessness crisis that existed before coronavirus has only intensified during this time period. We are very, very worried that in the next couple of months, we could see waves of evictions and foreclosures. We need, during this time period, during a recession, to be building as much housing as possible at all levels of affordability, particularly affordable housing. This is something that I'm championing, both because we need to house folks. It's the safest thing to do from a public health standpoint, but also it's important for public health.
But cuts are going to need to be made. Do you think they will be made within the housing segment?
I think we're going to be looking at deep, painful cuts throughout the budget. I think we're going to have to look at potential revenue ideas that we haven't considered before. And coronavirus has really shown a real bright light on the holes in our social safety net, and we've got to take care of our people.
Assemblymember Gallagher, you sit on the Education Subcommittee. Some 40% of the education budget comes from the general fund. What specific cuts are you expecting to see in education?
Well, we just had a budget subcommittee hearing on education last week, and we started to see that, hey, we are going to be faced with a very stark number when it comes to budget revenues decreasing. Announced, obviously, yesterday, $54 billion. All of us are committed on that committee to trying to keep a stable education budget as possible. Now, there's those different things that will help us in doing that. One is federal funds that will be coming in, or we think will be coming in to help support states and our counties in education. Another is our reserves, which we have been prudent. We've built up reserves, over these last few years, including the Prop 2 reserves that was established by the voters. That is, I think, going to help us get through this as well. But the other very big one is back where we started, reopening the economy and doing that safely. That will do more than anything to help get revenues back going into government. David, myself, and all of us who are working in the Assembly are going to try and provide a stable as possible budget for people, because we know how much people rely on it, rely on the social safety net. And now, because of the stay-at-home order and the millions that are unemployed, many more who are relying on services.
Assemblymember David Chiu, do you expect taxes to go up to help close this deficit?
We'll see what happens. But the fact of the matter is we're going to have to make incredibly painful cuts in all areas of government. And unless the federal government is able to step in and help, we're going to have to make some very, very difficult choices. So I don't think we can rule anything out at this time.
Assemblymember Gallagher, same question to you. Will taxes go up?
I think that's the last thing we should do when people are struggling so hard during this time. The last thing we should do is add to their tax load, which is already the highest in the nation in California. I agree with David. We need to work with our federal partners. They have already provided, by the way, $2 trillion worth of relief, and more coming as that is being debated back in Washington, D.C. We have control over our reserves, which I think we need to use and to try and help make a stable budget as possible this year. But I think we need to get more and more of the economy opened up, because that will do more than anything to help close the gap.
Assemblymember David Chiu in San Francisco, Assemblymember James Gallagher in Yuba City, thank you both so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Weeks of sheltering in place have taken a heavy toll on retailers. Today, the state began loosening restrictions for some of them. Clothing stores and sporting goods stores, for example, can reopen with social distancing in place for curbside pickup and delivery. Dine-in restaurants, shopping malls, and offices must remain closed for now. Counties may still implement stricter rules if they feel their region is not yet prepared to reopen. Joining me now are Deborah Nick, the owner of Sonoma Outfitters, a clothing and outdoor gear store in Santa Rosa, and Tina Ferguson, the owner of an independent bookstore, Face in a Book, in El Dorado Hills. Thank you both so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Deborah, let's start with
Thank
you. You have had some lean times in your business before. Sonoma Outfitters has been together for 40 years, but you've never faced something like this. How has the pandemic impacted your business?
Well, it completely closed it down when they ordered shelter in place, because we are a retail store selling clothing, footwear, sunglasses, so we're not considered essential. So we had to close our doors, and I had to lay my employees off. Luckily, our landlord has been working with us. My vendors have been pretty good so far, but it all depends on how much longer this is going to go on. You know, I have no idea when we finally are able to allow people in the store. Are all my old customers going to come back right away? Are they going to, be able to shop, be able to afford to shop? I don't know. It's just kind of a big question.
There's a lot of uncertainty right now.
Yeah.
Tina, you've actually been able to send books out to customers faster than Amazon has been recently. How much has your online business helped your bottom line?
Oh, extremely. It's been extremely helpful. Being able to service our customers online has given us the capability to continue keeping people on the payroll. It's been able to help us to pay our rent, to keep our vendors shipping to us. And so having that capability has saved us, definitely.
Tell me a little bit about how you are cautiously reopening now.
Well, we have been doing the curbside deliveries since the shelter in place started on the unofficial way, I guess you could say. So now officially we can make sure that people know that we're here every day, 10 to 5. They can come in and pick up a book. It's really difficult because they can't come in and browse. But if they know what they're looking for, they can certainly let us know. And if they're looking for recommendations, we're happy to take a phone call or an email and help them that way.
Deborah, what does reopening look like at Sonoma Outfitters?
People can call. We have had, a promotion going on for Mother's Day where we were selling gift cards, because our type of product that we sell, people really have to see and touch or try on. And with not being able to allow people in the store, it's really difficult. So we used to have a good online presence and used to sell a couple of years ago online, but we closed that site down because Amazon and our brands had started selling through their own sites, so it kind of cut that business out for us.
Do you feel you could implement social distancing within your store?
Very easily. Our store is, it's about, the sales floor is probably about 6,500 square feet, and there's plenty of room to social distance. in all the departments. Yeah.
Tina, you've applied for a PPP loan, Paycheck Protection Loan, but you haven't yet received it. What sort of hardships have you experienced due to this lack of funding?
Well, certainly my number one priority and my number one concern is my employees. They're the reason that the bookstore is what it is. They're the backbone of the store. And so being able to keep them on the payroll has been tantamount to me. And so that's where my priorities have gone. And now that we're reopening, we're hoping to bring some of those employees back into the store. But even though some may not be ready to come back or are afraid to come back, they'll still remain on our payroll until we're back to 100% normal.
Deborah, you have received a Paycheck Protection Program loan. Have you been able to bring back any of your employees? Do they all want to come back?
I have been able to bring back, I believe, 4 of my full-time employees. I have offered to rehire several others, and they are making up their mind whether or not they want to come back. And there's strict rules with the Paycheck Protection Program, so I really have to know from them pretty soon whether they're coming back. Otherwise, I'm going to rehire or hire someone else.
And what's the hesitation about coming back?
Well, they're receiving unemployment plus the $600 a week. And I think that's a big incentive for them to not come back, because a lot of them were part-time employees. So they're making more money right now on unemployment than they were when they were working.
Tina, I heard you agreeing.
Yes. None of mine have gone there. They are not collecting unemployment at this time. However, it's that catch-22 with, you have to keep them on the payroll in order to have the PPP loan forgiven, but yet you have to keep paying them without having the loan. It's like, how do you make all that work? It's like not all of us have this giant reserve of cash that we can wait for that loan.
Yeah. How much longer, Tina, do you feel you can go if business doesn't open up quickly and you don't get that PPP loan?
I can probably go another, I would say 2 to 3 months, but that's about all I can handle before I have to close the doors for good.
How much has it been a personal struggle in this decision to reopen, weighing the cost of public health and risks to your own health or your employees' health with the need to open financially?
That's where the rub is, so to speak, where you know that your employees want to work, they want to be back, they want to be engaging with our customers. Our customers want us to open our doors and become a gathering place again for them. And so, of course, we want to be safe. And so we're looking at all of the governor's guidelines for the workspace, making sure that we have things in place to keep us and them safe, and then hopefully bring us all back together in a way that is positive and supportive and keeps us moving forward.
Deborah, as a small business owner, how would you rate the governor's handling of the pandemic response?
I was very pleased in the beginning with the way he was handling it. And now the last week or two, I wish he would be opening us up a little more. I think there's a lot of businesses like mine that could easily follow rules to social distance and have everybody be safe, but still have them be able to come into the store. So I wish that would open up
a little faster
than it looks. Yes.
And Tina, what about you? Your thoughts on the governor's response?
I 100% agree. I think that having some real solid guidelines would be super helpful. To just say, hey, you can open. Everyone thinks that we're opening our doors, and so people are calling wanting to come shop, and it's like, no, we're not open. We're just doing curbside. And so that's been very difficult to explain to people. I do wish that we could have people in the store. Again, we're the kind of store as the Sonoma Outfitter store where you can only have a certain number of people in at a time. I mean, it's not like we're having 100 people in the store. We can easily do social distancing and things to keep people safe.
Deborah Nick with Sonoma Outfitters and Tina Ferguson with Face in a Book. Thank you both so much for being with us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Next week is the start of CAAMFest, a film festival produced by the Center for Asian American Media. For nearly 40 years, the festival has held screenings in the Bay Area celebrating Asian American storytelling. But because of the pandemic, they decided to shift their entire 10-day festival online. Starting next week, they'll roll out more than 20 free digital programs, from discussions with filmmakers to live performances and watch parties, showcasing the diversity and creativity of Asian American artists. With a theme of heritage at home, it's a bold experiment that may also point to a future of engaging audiences wherever they are. Joining me now is the director of the festival, Masashi Nawano. Masashi, thank you so much for being with me.
Thanks for having me on your show.
So, due to the coronavirus, you've had to pivot like many others. What made you decide to hold the festival anyway, online, rather than canceling like some musical festivals have done?
Yeah, well, thank you. At first we didn't know. I think we were trying to figure out how the world was evolving. And, we started to see so much isolation from our audience members and our community. And that need for a connection of a festival seemed so important. And at the same time, we saw all of this anti-Asian discrimination, and we felt, May is APA Heritage Month. It's really important that we come together, even if remotely, even if for our own houses, and celebrate Asian American heritage and our history here in the U.S.
So you felt like you needed to bring people together, and particularly in the light of the anti-Asian American discrimination, which, as you say, has been on the rise since the pandemic began. Will your festival directly address this?
Yeah, absolutely. We have so many programs at our festival that really focus on not only telling stories, but also using the festival as a space for discussion to talk about these issues. And all of our Q&As, every program that we have will have a live component, whether it's a musician, a filmmaker, and this is going to be something we talk about throughout the entirety of the festival.
What are you hearing from the Asian American artists about this concern in this era and this time?
I think it's scary. I think that a lot of people are not only scared for their own jobs, for their own personal lives, but to then go out in public and have that fear that something might happen is something that I know is really impacting the kind of mental stability of the Asian American community right now.
Well, let's turn to the film festival itself and the films that you have selected. Let's talk about the opening and closing night films. How did you choose them?
Yeah, well, for us, as I talk about healing, we also want a festival that is in the spirit of our normal fest and have really fun celebratory films, things that people can escape with, to be entertained by. So both our opening and closing are musicals. Our opening night, I Will Make You Mine, is directed by Lin Chen. What I love about this film is it's a third in a trilogy of Asian American feature films. And for me, as someone who's in Asian American cinema, seeing Asian American films now have trilogies is pretty amazing. It's a really beautiful film. Our closing is Fruit Fly. This is a film that was shot in San Francisco 10 years ago. And so it's a 10-year anniversary. It's a sing-along. One of my favorite filmmakers, H.P. Mendoza, is making this screening something very unique. And the two of us have talked about how can we use the online space for new ways of being creative and interacting with audiences. So I'm excited for people to check that out.
And Fruit Fly looks at what it means to be Asian and gay in the Mission District. You also take a look at politics this year. You have two documentaries, And She Could Be Next and First Vote. What did you learn from these documentaries that could be applied to the 2020 election cycle?
Yeah, one of them, First Vote, what I love about it is it really explores Asian American Democrats, but also Asian American Republicans. And it does it in a nuanced, thoughtful way where it's not black or white, this and that. It really looks at the values and the goals of both sides. And you find these really interesting parallels and then also things that separate us. Also with And She Could Be Next, I think what's really great about it is the director, Grace Lee, is chronicling not only Asian Americans in political office, but other women of color. And I think for us to be great Asian Americans, we also want to be really connecting and collaborating with other communities of colors. And so that's a really great project that shows you as a movement so many amazing things happening in politics.
Well, since the time you've been involved with the festival, it's 20 years overall, 10 years, this is your 10th year as a director, the representation and power of Asian Americans has certainly grown. Do you feel that the voice of the Asian American has changed in the media and in their portrayal as well during that time, and in what ways?
Yeah, thank you. I definitely think so. I think if you look at the kind of percentage of Asian American representation on TV, it's getting closer to maybe 8 to 10%, which if you look 10 years ago was not there. And what I love about films and stuff you're seeing on Netflix and in other spaces is not only are there Asian Americans in front of the camera, but they're also behind the camera. And what that took was not only Hollywood, but a lot of amazing filmmakers behind the scenes through decades working on their craft and now becoming to a point where they're directing, producing, doing all of those things. And you can see in a film that has Asian Americans, the ones that really connect, you can tell there are also Asian Americans behind it because it feels more authentic, or it has more of a sense of kind of personalness.
So do you think what you're doing here, going online, is a future of film festivals? Certainly there are things that are gained and lost.
I hope that after all of this happens, that all of the festivals, including us, don't go straight back to what we did in the past. I think that we do need to evolve. And doing stuff online and putting stuff in people's homes is actually really exciting. There's been, after the anxiety of it all, there's been some fun in creating ways of, okay, now we can connect this way and that way, and we can have surprises here and there. So I hope that we continue to do stuff online. But hopefully it's both, because for me, as someone who loves cinema, I love the theater. I hope we can get to a point where the communities can come out together and celebrate stories together.
Masashi Nawano, the CAAMFest Festival Director, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
You can catch all the performances, discussions, and films at this year's CAAMFest at caamfest.com. The festival kicks off next Wednesday, May 13th. As always, you can find more of our coverage at kqed.org/kqed-newsroom. I'm Priya David Clemens. You can reach me through my social media handle, Priya D. Clemens. Thank you for joining us. Stay safe.